Japan has been talking to some Asian countries. Seems like trying to form a military club, something like NATO, but at a smaller scale. And we all know this is on behalf of you know who. Hi, Leslie Fu here. Japan has been visiting, talking to South Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Australia. These countries, we all know that Japan is trying to form a clique, in Asia, something like NATO, but a mini NATO. The main purpose, of course, is to contain China. The US knows that the island chain strategy is no longer working. So there has to be something else to be put in place to contain China. And given the current US strategy, Japan is now the so-called the commander-in-chief in Asia for the US, because the US is busy elsewhere, like Middle East. And of course, it is also trying to clean up its own backyard, Central America, South America. Now, okay, back to Japan and Asia. But the thing is, this mini NATO, so to speak, it's not likely to be as firm and strong like NATO in Europe. This one is a bit fragile. Why? Because there are some gaps pertaining to the Asian countries that Japan is trying to pull in. Let's look at each individual of them. Now, we know that Philippines is definitely in, given that recently there is a huge joint military exercise. Japan, US, Philippines, Australia. So, Philippines is definitely one of the member of this mini NATO. Not to worry, Philippines is a diehard fan. For sure, it will. I'm a diehard fan of the US. So for sure, it will stand side by side with Japan. The issue about this, or the gaps of this mini NATO that I mentioned earlier, are the other members. The other members have their own, their own interests to cater for. Now, let's look at each and one of them. South Korea. Well, South Korea is not likely to be as hardcore following the US and join this mini NATO. Like, no issue, 100% all out. Why? Because there's a very big threat or concern behind South Korea. That is the North Korea. Especially North Korea recently said that, the change of constitutions, saying that it no longer treats South Korea as a partner pertaining to reunification, so on and so forth. It is treating South Korea as a standalone sovereignty and like a different country, not like a partner in the past. So that means if there is any steps that South Korea takes and worries North Korea will strike, as if South Korea is an invader. So this is major reasons why South Korea cannot join force like full force out, no question asked, the mini NATO. Because if South Korea were to do so, like joining Japan and the others, and trigger some ripples, making some heat wave in the neighboring sea, North Korea may come, and together with Russia. So this is a big concern that haunting South Korea and make it not likely to, I should say, all out to be with Japan, or rather to be with this mini NATO, this military club. So this is one gap. I mean, it will play, it will strike a balance. Of course, it will not, all out saying, no, I'm not going to join you. No, you're on your own. I have my own concern. No, it's not going to say that, because that will anger the US. It will strike a balance. If it's just for show, yes, whatever action that you want, I will do it. But there will be some limitation that South Korea will do. So it will strike a balance between China, containing China, and make the US happy. So this is the situations on Korea, South Korea. Now, let's look at Vietnam. Vietnam is neighbor of China, and it is also not likely to be all out to join Japan in terms of containing China via the South China Sea. How should I put it? Because at this stage, Vietnam needs China in terms of China investments, in terms of China's help pertaining to Vietnam infrastructure, especially the railway. Vietnam needs that. And the current leadership of Vietnam knows that. That's why we see recently Vietnamese leader went to China to see Xi Jinping. So this is part of the move to tell China that, well, not to worry, we are neighbors, and no, I know we should work together instead of going against each other. And of course, at the same time, Vietnam also will not anger the US and not joining Japan and not joining the whatever actions that Japan's require Vietnam to do on behalf of the US. Like South Korea, Vietnam will also try to strike a balance between containing China, helping the US, containing China, and making US happy. So this is another gap, it's a Vietnam gap with regards to the mini NATO. So it's not likely to be all out, no question asked. Vietnam will support this mini NATO or whatever military actions that Japan wants. Well, that's not likely to be the case. Likewise, Indonesia is the same. Indonesia will also try to strike a balance between China and US. China, besides it needs China's help in terms of infrastructure, it also needs China's market for its minerals, iron ore, so on and so forth, aluminum, all these minerals, because China has a huge appetite for this. Indonesia knows that, and Indonesia has what China wants. Of course, Indonesia is not likely to kill China market. So Indonesia will also say that, well, it's okay. So whatever you want, I can accommodate, so long as it doesn't anger China and kill off my Indonesia exports to China and kill off China's help in terms of infrastructure. So that's why Indonesia will also try to balance among US and China. So this is a gap, another gap in the mini NATO that Japan is trying to build. Now, Australia is a wild card because it can happen both ways, 50-50. You can have an administration, Australian government that will full force up, joining the US, Japan, the mini NATO against China. And it also can happen Australian government that focus more on economy. It wants the China market for its iron ore, for its minerals, for its beef, dairy products, so on and so forth. So it depends on the ideology of the administrations at that point in time. So that's why I've said that Australia is 50-50. Right? I mean, we have seen that in the past. Australia full force out against China. Then later on, when another administration is said, well, hang on, we don't want to be in war or frictions with China. We want China's demand for our products. We want economy. We don't want fights. So it can, based on history, past records, it can happen. That's why I say Australia is a wild card, 50-50. So given all this, there are gaps in this mini NATO as far as the countries that Japan has chosen to be a member of this military club. And this is not easy to meet the objective of this mini NATO that Japan is trying to build on behalf of the US. And moreover, China is very strong now. Economic, military, very strong. So it is not easy to go against the current China. And it's a tough job. It's a tough job. So I don't think it's a very smooth path for the formations. Even if Japan managed to gather this country and form the group, there will be reservations among the members, which I talked about just now. So executions of its objective is not easy. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Cheers.